So hi everybody, thank you for coming to the webinar today. I'm just allowing a few other people to come in. We've got about 70 or so signed up, which is great, all around the world. So thank you for attending. I'd just like to introduce Rebecca. Rebecca is a seasoned business leader who's been working in the intersection of tech and creativity for more than 20 years. And she's now an AI and leadership strategist, advising leaders on how to navigate the fast-moving world of AI and integrate it strategically into their business, ensure responsible AI adoption. And she also heads up our strategic partnerships for GGA and GGFA. So I'm just going to kick off with a poll just while people are coming in. I can work out how to do that. Hopefully, if you can just all answer this poll, and hopefully you can see it. Some of you maybe tell me in the chat that you can see it. And then I'm just going to do a little intro while everyone's coming in. I'm also getting a few people saying that they're struggling with the link, but I'm just sorting that out at the same time. But yeah, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of an intro. I'm very new to AI. I've been working on it for about using it for about 3 months. After having a very archaic view, I'm now learning, and there are loads of tools around, and I'm personally enjoying the experience that I get from Claude. There's a lot of talk around the awards sector about whether AI should be allowed in entry writing and how the judges respond to it, and whether if they even recognise when it's being used and if they would score it down. And I'm talking to a lot of our judges about that at the moment. So just to share where we are at GGA, we're using AI as a tool to aid your tasks. And as you'll hear Rebecca shortly, it's not to write your entire application start to finish. But our judges will be briefed, as they always are, to score and evaluate an entry based on the quality of the entry and the evidence and the proof of impact. So regardless of how the words were put together, if it's written well with good evidence, it'll score much better than if it's written badly and the criteria isn't followed. Our terms and conditions state that entrants must have the right to use the content provided, so that will be the same for any content, AI or not. So that's our views. Obviously, awards will have their different views and their terms and conditions. But yeah, so that's how we're treating it at the Global Good Awards. It's been around for a long time, AI, but only now is it becoming more widely available. So while it's quite daunting, it's way more than just proofreading some text. We'll be helping you to understand how and when to use it, and also when not to use it. What are its big wins, what's not so great, and the risks and the pitfalls to look out for. I'm just going to fly straight in to pose a series of questions, Rebecca. Some of those are from people that have sent in ahead of the session, but do ask questions in the question section, not the chat. If you can remember to use questions, not chat, and I'll dip in and out as we go along. So we'll crack on with some of the questions. Rebecca, would you like to just say hi to everyone and just introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah. So thank you for the introduction, Karen. I can see that most people on the call are dabblers, which I thought might be the case. I think everyone's had their kind of chat GPT moment. So we'll be kind of expanding on probably tools that you've actually experimented with a little bit already. But the AI we're going to be really talking about today is large language models, so LLMs. So ChatGPT being probably the most famous one. Other ones include Claude, which Karen's already mentioned, Gemini from Google. Won't mention the one from X. There are quite a few of them, but that's the ones we're talking about. So really what they are today, they can generate and understand text, but they can also generate and understand video and images as well, which is actually crucial from an accessibility point of view, which we'll probably touch on.
Cool. So let's crack on then. AI is becoming more accessible in many areas of the business. What's changed recently to make it a useful tool for something like award writing?
I think that they've become better and better at reasoning. So actually, if you can prompt well, you can actually work with it very much as a kind of collaborator. So very much not to replace the human when it comes to award entry writing or any other creative endeavor, actually, but use it as a pal, use it as a kind of intern or a researcher, and we can go into the kind of different use cases. But the main thing that's happened over the last couple of years is it's really become democratized. It's affordable for most people. The entry level of kind of like the free tiers are actually pretty decent now. The other thing I would say that's pretty exciting over the last probably about 6 months is voice mode, being able to actually interact with it just by voice, and actually that it'll generate text from that. So that's made it accessible to a lot more people. It also means that people have got different ways they like to brainstorm and collaborate, and so it's becoming more like a kind of assistant.
Cool. Okay. So there's a lot of talk around AI about making using it to make things a lot faster. But is it just about efficiency, or is there more to it?
It's way more than efficiency. So, like I say, I mean, I see it as a potential as a collaborative partner in the creative process. So, it can also help you structure things better, be more accurate. You can do fact checking. You can use it to help you brainstorm. You can help it to research, to kind of augment your entry. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it. I mean, I think that you can kind of just use it to augment rather than to replace, but it's certainly it's more about efficiency. You can actually kind of elevate what you're doing. So you can, if you have an idea, you can riff, you can kind of brainstorm with the AI, and you can kind of come up with compelling narratives. You can draft if you draft something that's way longer than the entry that you need to have because of the word count, it can help you edit and chop and kind of restructure. So all of those kind of things it can help with.
Yeah, I think time-wise, I think trying to cut a 500 word down to 400 word is very time-consuming when you're trying to avoid cutting out the important bits. Um, could it be useful for things like with people with learning difficulties, like dyslexia?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I mean, you can actually kind of fine tune tools within the likes of ChatGPT, where you can tell it your particular preferences and how you communicate and your style, and it can help you with that. The other thing as well, like I mentioned, voice mode kind of comes into its own for people with the likes of dyslexia, because you can actually kind of just talk to it. So advanced voice mode with ChatGPT, for example, and the other ones are starting to kind of follow suit. So I'd say within the next 6 months, whichever LLM you're using, you'll be able to interact very naturally with voice.
Yeah, great. Um, so obviously most people here are keen to learn about this particular area. What sort of how do you think AI can help businesses with their award strategies?
So I think actually there's an obvious use case when it comes to writing the award entries themselves, which we'll kind of go into. But actually, I think you can raise it up a level and look at it as a strategic companion for the whole year. So if you think about, you could use it for researching what awards you might want to enter, what previous winners, what the previous winners have been, what their entry. Yeah, obviously you can't see their entries, but you can kind of see the top line judges' comments, etc. So you can use some initial research just to kind of collate what you want to potentially enter. Also, if you think about all the evidence you need to provide, particularly something like the Global Good Awards, which is very stringent and detailed, all the evidence you need to provide on things like impact, on customers, on environment, etc. You could be collating all that information throughout the year, and you can actually use AI. I'll start to give you some actual practical examples. So Notion AI, for example, you could have that as a repository of any kind of customer testimonials that you collect, or any other data throughout the year that will provide evidence for your award entries. And you can have it as one place to organize it and interrogate that database. So when you've built up, so say for example, you've got 50 customer testimonials in there, you can say, bring me the top 3 themes that have kind of come out of testimonials this year, or can you group this all of this evidence into particular areas of impact, and you can tell it, well, this award, for example, wants to look for impact of these areas. Where in my database over the course of the year have I been able to demonstrate that? So it can just really speed up that research process. I think what else? Yeah, and then when obviously when it comes to the entries themselves, you can input what the judges are looking for from the guidance, see what you've already got. You can start to draft narratives. Either you could start by just drafting the narrative yourself and then get the AI to sense check it and work with you on it, or you can, you can slice and dice it how you like. But there's lots of different ways to work with it to get started.
Well, I'm hoping that all the people that are going to start using AI now are going to be able to not leave their entry until the last hour of the final day, because
There you go.
they'll have done all this preparation that 90% of the entries won't come in on the last day. I'm even
Yeah,
getting laughs from people now
absolutely.
because
And of
you know
course,
you all do it.
yeah, of course. And actually, you can set up automated reminders, flagging certain things that happen throughout the year. So absolutely, you can
Yeah.
start to build that in. We can maybe produce a guide for that, Karen, for your entrance.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I'm just going to pick up on one thing you did say about choosing particular awards to enter. Um, I, I I know Claude is relatively good at this because I've tested it, but I don't know about the others. Obviously, being the Global Good Awards, we're very averse to any awards that are we class as vanity awards. So when you are doing your research on which other awards to enter, please make sure you do, we're going to be talking about keeping the human in there, but just do your research on whether there are vanity awards. I actually have written an article on vanity awards, and if you type it in vanity awards into Google, I come up top, and I do name and shame awards that are not very ethical. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to capture that if AI doesn't pick up on that, then yeah, just be careful about what you enter. Um, so we've talked about the award submission itself and where you want where it can add real value. Um, Obviously, GGA is 100% about being ethical, transparent, authentic. How do you ensure authenticity within AI?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I would say never think about complete automation here. You absolutely have to keep the human element and oversight into anything you do with AI. So I think that it's really important that, especially for something that's celebrating impact, and stories around achievement and sustainability and people centricity and etc., that you tell your story from a very authentic place. So you are the storyteller. You ultimately own your story, your narrative that you're entering these awards for. So I think that keeping that in mind is really, really crucial. The other thing as well is I'd say if you put a quite generic prompt in to AI and you ask it to create some content, the stuff that can come out can be very samey. And I think we've probably all seen some very bad examples, whether it's an outreach on LinkedIn or an email newsletter where there's some really cliched AI. I mean, I work in this day in day out, so I can spot it a mile off. But I think even like to the layperson who doesn't do a lot of AI, you can spot some of this kind of really trite stuff that's coming out. So one, it's in doing much better prompting and kind of working with the AI to kind of help with the authentic voice. But I think the main thing is making sure you do keep it. So have it as an assistant, not as a replacement, and certainly don't just leave it to it. It can be inaccurate as well, so you need to make sure that you're fact checking. The AI can help you with your own fact checking, but also conversely, you need to check its own facts. So never just take it as read that something is accurate. One trick I do as well is if you're using AI to research to augment your entry, um, get them to check each other's homework. So you can actually have ChatGPT and Claude actually, check out each other. And I actually spot probably 98% of mistakes by doing that because it's an
Oh, that's
extra layer.
really
Yeah.
good tip. Yeah. And we also talked about different tones in language. If you're going to be writing some of it and you're using AI to write some, talk about that. And specifically, I find obviously spelling can be different in America and here. And when I know when you're writing something using AI, sometimes the Z's creep in, which
Well,
I have a bit of a thing about.
so I personally, unfortunately, keep the Zs in because I've got a global client base and I work with a lot of clients in the US, and they won't accept the S's. But yeah, you're right. By default, most of the LLMs will come out with American spelling. And actually, even if you go back and prompt it to rewrite it and say English spelling, please, it will still miss. So always check. I don't think they're going to get that right anytime soon. It's not just the Z's and S's; it's the humor with an O and an
Yeah.
R and O and a U rather.
Yeah,
So
to
yeah,
use that
just,
example, but
just keep
yeah,
keep a
yes.
check, keep a check on that.
So I think what Rebecca's saying is it's not flawless. It's a really useful, handy tool, but just keep the human person in there, and cross check. And a great tip on using two platforms
Mm.
for cross checking each other. That was really really good. Um, so on top of those, some of those things to be aware of. There's obviously some questions around transparency bias and carbon footprint of using AI. What should teams be wary of and keep in mind about the responsibility of using it?
Yeah, so it does use a lot of compute power. So there's no getting away from that. I mean, there's a lot of exploration on it's using electricity. So anything that can be powered by renewable sources is the right way to go. And I'm really hoping that things are going to go in that direction. But in terms of what we can do now in terms of responsible use, I wouldn't, I'd be conscious of your own default use of it. So don't use it as a search engine. Don't use it as a catch-all to like ask anything, because you're firing up the engine every time, and that is using compute power. So limit how often you're asking it and interrogating it. So try and be mindful of that. So a lot of that is kind of being good, starting to get good at the prompting. Because if you can craft an accurate prompt, that's only one set of output. But if you're constantly kind of going back and iterating, that is using a lot of power. So that's worth getting to grips with, and really kind of I actually help quite a lot of clients with that. And then the other thing as well is, in terms of teams, depending on the size of your business, it's really worth thinking about having an AI usage policy to guide employees as to what AI you want them to use for what purpose, and have a guide as to that. So you don't want, for example, sensitive company data going out to an LLM that's not kind of ring fenced in a private account, essentially, because otherwise it's getting out there into the ether. So there's considerations there as well. And if employers aren't giving guidance for employees, they're going to bring their own AI to work anyway. And the danger there is that they're going to be putting sensitive data out there. So actually having a policy that says, these are the tools we use, this is your account, this is how to use it responsibly. So yeah, even a simple AI policy is advisable.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add to that? What about use of content, PI?
Yeah, again, yeah. Obviously, that should be part of your AI policy. So absolutely, kind of protection, not using any. I mean, the thing is, it's the same principles as would apply without the use of AI. It's
With website
respect
searches?
intellectual exactly. So those, just apply whatever policies you have around intellectual property and copyright protection that you would, and make sure that that's extended into any use of AI. Even more importantly, because AI inherently, I mean, even the AI, some of the LMs out there are kind of are trained on potentially questionable uh, rights in terms of sources. So let's not add to
Yes. Okay. Yes, there was some news recently, wasn't there? We won't talk too much about that.
that.
Just from my point of view, what I've experienced is when we were talking about how much of the internet it's looking, how much it's using like a whole brain when you ask it such a generic question. um, in the last few weeks, I've really fine-tuned my questions and
Mm.
said, and I'm specifically looking for X, but can you drill down onto the, and it really does come up with the right, a good, good set answer. If you really, I think, don't underestimate how specific it can be and how it can take what you've asked it and deliver a good answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're using something like Notion AI to kind of store all of your evidence and your database of data throughout the year, and you're interrogating that, that's actually a pretty responsible way to do it. All I say is delete any unnecessary data. So if you're finished with your particular set, delete it so that you're not powering that every time. So that's another kind of responsible pillar that you can be thinking about.
Okay. So as it continues to evolve, do you see it changing the way awards are judged or how organisations present their stories?
Um, yeah, I think, look, I think it's inevitable that most people are going to be using AI increasingly for award entries. And I think it's going to get to a point where it's likely that all entries have got an element of AI. Now that's great because it democratizes it for people. It enables everyone to have an equal chance of creating a great narrative because we know that and I'm not talking about global good awards here, but a lot of award entries, it's the Vanity Awards you mentioned, for example. Just writing a really compelling narrative you know, can be very close to getting a win. Whereas actually, if it's much more about evidence and impact and more stringent criteria such as you have, um, then I think that that's going to win out. Because if all entries could be a great narrative, then what are you judging? It's the impact, it's the real gritty stuff. So I think that hopefully, actually, it's going to have a better impact overall on the awards industry in the end, because you're going
That's
to
re-
stand out. You're going to have to prove that you're doing the stuff that you're talking about.
yeah, absolutely. So just going to throw an extra one in here for a bit of a laugh.
Oh
It
yeah.
might be even possible in a few years' time. Do you see a future where AI will be the judges?
Oh, I think that hmm, I think it's entirely possible that the AI could have a first pass. What I'd worry about at the moment is missing nuance, and I wouldn't want anyone to lose the chance to get put through because but in terms of kind of making sure, for example, that all of the criteria has been met or all of the sections have been filled out. Okay, all the sections have been filled out, for example. If you know that if someone hasn't done that bit, a human eye would say, okay, it's not a valid entry. You could use it for a first pass like that. I think the ultimate judge, I can't. I mean, I don't. I wouldn't like to think of
No,
it
not
as
right now.
at all. No,
Yeah,
I'd
it's an
hate to think
interesting
that, to be
idea
honest.
to, yeah, you potentially use it just as a first pass or to
Yeah,
see how accurately you've answered the questions. We're
I
not
mean,
going
if
to,
you think,
we're not going to do that this year. Don't worry, guys. Yeah. So, one person's asked, I can't, any tips on what software specifically would be best for which tasks and functions?
yeah, so I've mentioned that if you have, for whatever reason, you want to work with voice, then ChatGPT is probably your go-to. It's kind of it's a go-to for a lot of people because it's very accessible. It's the most famous. But honestly, if in terms of kind of where to start, I would look at what software you're already using. So actually, if you're using Google Workspace, for example, there's a free access to Gemini that you can do off the back of it, and it can work with your Google Docs, your Google Slides, your email, etc. So you can build efficiencies there. So that might be a good place to start. Equally, if you use Microsoft Office, then there's Copilot. I'm not so I haven't got very much working knowledge of Copilot. I'm not a big fan, but if you've already got Microsoft Office, there are probably some quick wins there. I've already mentioned Notion AI. I think for a friendly interface and kind of the collaborative creative partner, my preference would be Claude. I think you feel the same, Karen. So
Yeah.
that's from Anthropic, who are probably I'd say actually from an ethical point of view, probably on the better side of history as well when you come to when you think about some of the others. And that very much feels like, and what you can do in Claude, if you have the pro account, which is $20 a month, you can set up projects where you can actually have artifacts, data in there that's private and contained, but it relates to particular projects. So you could actually set up your award entry kind of work into a project, and then you can keep kind of going back and working with it on the entry itself, and it's a good creative partner.
Great. Um, and obviously, I'm not gonna mention any other names, but you obviously have to be a bit cautious about. We've already talked about making sure you check that things are factual, but depending on what country the software has been developed, you might get different answers on certain questions, like who owns what country, for example. So yeah, we don't need to delve too far into that. But yeah, so just be cautious about, what software you're using, depending on what country it's been developed in. Um,
Enough said.
Enough said. Exactly. This is a question that came in from someone I think who's on the call, and I will be able to answer this pretty quickly. There's two things. How can AI be used to align award entries with the judges' criteria and expectation? I think we've actually covered that, haven't we?
Yeah, I
Um,
think so. I
yeah,
think
yeah, I
so. I
think
mean,
yeah,
yeah, you can actually enter in these are the criteria
yeah. Okay.
against everything. Yeah, everything you've got.
Yes, I think it's the next one. So data and insights from previous winners. Are there AI tools that can analyze successful award submissions from previous years to extract patterns and strategies? Well, I'll take that one first because obviously there's some privacy issues there around sharing other organisations' entries. Obviously, if you're doing it on your own entries, you can. So maybe Rebecca, you can come to that in a second. But in terms of benchmarking against assess the gold winner, for example, for what our tech award in 2024, and see how you can win against that in 2025. We can't share an applicant's entry, so unless you've got access to it anyway, then that's not going to be really possible. But maybe you can share, Rebecca, if it was their own award entry, or if they were to say enter 5 different awards and they hadn't done very well, could they share those applications with the criteria for another award and see if they
Yeah,
can improve it?
absolutely. That yeah, you could absolutely ask it to analyze and say how could this be improved. The other idea I've actually just had as you say that question, if you do publish, you know, what the judges thought, what they loved about this entry, because I
Yeah,
know obviously that's read out at the awards. What you could do, and this is thinking the longer term, back to the kind of, you know, using year round as a strategic from a strategic perspective, you could actually enter those, you know, what the judges loved and said, what can I do in the next year to get to that kind of judge comment? You know, what evidence do I need to collate? What impact do we need to make? What kind of you know, I can't think of a solid example, but if you probably can, like if you can just say, I would like to aim to have the judges say this about us next year, what could we be doing between now and then to get there?
yeah, okay, yeah, it's good, useful. Um, I, I can't remember whether we've covered this. Are there any tips on using AI to help improve your creativity and generate more innovative ways of presenting your information?
Yeah, no, that I mean that's back to the collaborative partner thing, which I certainly kind of use with Claude. It's kind of like, let's brainstorm this, let's riff this. Again, you want to be conscious of compute power and make sure the prompt is really is in depth as you can be. But definitely, you can use it to brainstorm. To it's not, you know, it's not great at generating completely fresh ideas, but you can certainly use it to reframe, think about telling a story in a different way. Um, and yeah, just use it as a kind of creative brainstorm partner, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had one other question from Martin. I think we've covered it actually. It's about delving into the data that's scattered around institutional memory. I think we've covered
Mm.
that, haven't we? Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say that, yeah, it's a good point though, that actually da- AI is great at processing data, but it's only the results you'll get out of it is only as good as the data you put in. So make sure you've got clean data practices. So, you know, if you're collating stuff, making sure it remains accurate, up to date, that you're cleaning out, you know, you're deleting anything that's not relevant anymore. One, because it's less compute power for the AI to be processing, but also, yeah, it's just a cleaner process. So you can definitely, you know, collating your data in one place, um, and and yeah, keeping it organized is definitely one use case.
yeah. And I currently only use the free version of Claude, but I'm going to be probably upgrading to the pro one. What are the sort of differences in this is just a question that come to me. What are the differences in benefits? What does it give you in the pro versions? I mean, I'm thinking that you can create those projects that
Yeah, yeah. So there's projects, which is great because it's kind of basically it remembers what you've been working on, and you can organize things that you can kind of go back and keep working on. The other thing is just the sheer volume of 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 requests that you can do. So if you might have found already that it might say this chat is getting too long, or you've used up all of your, you know, your usage. So it's literally giving you more bandwidth. Um,
yeah
you also are able to have for most of them, once you're on a paid version, you can say, I don't want my any data to be used for training these models. I want it to be remain private, which is obviously at a company level very important. So there are pro versions that you can buy company wide with different, multiple users, where you can have an instance that's protected.
Yeah, okay. Um, One other question, which I probably can cover, how are other award application folks using AI currently? I'm assuming that question was about platforms, entry platforms. I'm only really relatively familiar with two, Award Stage, which we use, and there a few of them are on the call. Hello, Award Stage. They don't use any AI at the moment. I know another one, Evesio, is using it. They've actually embedded ChatGPT into their application forms. So when you build the application forms, you can add it in as in each question. In my opinion, I think that might, I don't know whether you agree, Rebecca, but I think that will lead people to become a little lazy.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
agree?
no, yeah, I do. And I think it's also runs the risk of a lot of generic content that's going to look the same, which will drive judges bonkers,
Yeah.
frankly. So I don't think it's a great idea. I personally don't like it when I'm writing a LinkedIn post and it's trying to say use AI to do. I'm like, I don't want to. I want to write my own LinkedIn post. I'll use AI if I want to on a choose. I don't want it to be kind of constantly like trying to get me to do it. So yeah, I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay, I've just had a question in. If an applicant does not use AI and you do find more human error, will judges penalise due to applicants not using AI tools available? No, I mean, I don't know whether, Tracy, I don't know what time you joined the call, but our judges will be judging based on the quality of the content, regardless of how it was written, as long as you obviously have the permission to use it. For example, as we talked about PI, but no, it will be purely based on the quality of the entry. Judges do take into consideration English as your first language. If English is not your first language, or they recognise signs of dyslexia, they will take that into consideration. But otherwise, it's purely based on quality of entry. Um, Got another one? Sorry, oh, this is a long one. Thanks, Yasmin. um, when I've used ChatGPT to find specific statistics, it confidently quotes useful looking data, but some results seem to be completely made up, as I can't locate the original sources online or the reports don't actually contain those statistics. Is it literally just inventing plausible sounding information through predicting word patterns? And if so, why does it invent these statistics rather than say, I can't offer that information? It's
Yeah,
a good
so
question.
yeah, really good question. It's called hallucinating. It's called hallucinations. It's a known problem. The LLMs have been configured in such a way that they want to please. They want to like, yeah, I've got all the answers. And sometimes if they don't have the answer, they'll make them up. And that's actually a real thing. It's improving, but it still absolutely exists. What I would advise is asking them to cite sources if they're going to come back with an answer. So and you can actually tell it you can actually tell it to like don't just say anything. Don't just say anything that comes up. You can, yeah. I've even had a conversation with LM when I've said like, you don't need to lie. If you don't know, just tell me. And they do
Yeah, there you
actually
go.
respond to that. And if you
Yeah,
train, yeah, yeah,
I've done that as well. Yeah, I've said, please don't tell me this, or please don't come back with this, and it actually says, okay, okay,
yeah.
Karen.
Yeah, and when you get used to working with a particular LLM, you start to build that into your prompts, and it starts to get to work with you. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really good question. It can be absolutely it can be irritating. So I understand that. But yeah, ask it to cite sources every time.
Great. So we've kind of come to all the end of the questions. No one else has asked any other questions. Rebecca, is there anything else you want to talk through, or
I'll end with kind of a final tip. I'd say that it can be really overwhelming when you look at all the, I mean, you can see the news or LinkedIn, like there's so many different AI tools and updates happening all the time, and it seems to be quite dizzying sometimes. I wouldn't be intimidated. I'd say, start with, you know, experiment with a few different ones, see what style you like. We've mentioned quite a few today, and I can always follow up with a list and suggestion of what you could try. But then when you find one you like, just work with that one for a while and just get used to it. Get good at prompting, practice that, and rather than try and learn all of them, because you don't need to. If you want to find a creative collaborator, it's best that you get used to the style of one, and get good at that before you get into more, sophisticated. I mean, obviously, I work with a lot of leaders, kind of just getting them off the starting blocks and just getting comfortable and confident until we start to talk more about widespread adoption across the business and using it more strategically. But from a personal productivity point of view, just get comfortable with one.
Okay. We've had another question in. If an award criteria doesn't ask or require the submitter to disclose whether AI has been used, are judges likely to favour award entries which disclose and where AI has been used? We we had a conversation about this internally, whether we were going to ask them to disclose, and we've decided not. And one of the reasons is, if you're a big user of AI, you'll probably recognize some of the content, but if you're not, you probably won't. And we didn't want, no, we don't want judges to guess, but equally we don't want them to subconsciously mark down or mark up. So again, going back to that, it's about the quality and of the content and the writing, not where you obtained it from. We don't see a reason to penalize somebody for using AI because they could just use the internet. It's just 25 years on from the internet, really. I don't know whether that's a good enough analogy, but it's, people will use the internet, so why can't they use AI? I think it is a bit of an archaic answer and thought process if you're thinking that judges are going to mark down, because they shouldn't, and our judges will be briefed on that. Do you want to add anything to that, Rebecca?
No, I think you've covered that one.
Okay. I did. There was a one thing I will just say. It's just a little thing that came to mind. There was a phrase that I heard someone use a little while ago about, because there's obviously some concern about whether AI will take people's jobs, right? And certainly in sort of administrative tasks and stuff like that. I heard this really great comment about, no, AI won't take your jobs, but someone who uses it well will. And I think that's a good it's here to stay. We've got to adapt it, we've got to embrace it, and we've got to use it to the best ability that we can, but just make sure we understand its limitations, just like our own limitations.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
if Rebecca, if anyone wants to know more about AI and how to get some strategies into their business, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah,
Just
well, like
giving
I
you
said,
a plug.
oh, thank you.
Unshamed plug.
Well, I do advise businesses on AI adoption. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. So if anyone's interested in just understanding more about how it could help their business, then absolutely you can follow up with me. I'm happy to offer that. I will, just for what we talked about today, like I mentioned, I'll put something together to just do a bit of a rundown of the tools to get started, and we'll do that for free. We can do that as a way of follow up on email.
Okay, cool. I did have just one question that they put in the comments rather than the questions. Do you have any top tips for how to write good prompts?
That's um,
A
I
bit of a
do.
longer.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's that's a whole session,
Yeah,
honestly.
it probably is. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
be as,
Rebecca, we could probably do
be as
that as a like a consult thing. Because
yeah,
I'm sure Will might be up for that.
yeah.
Um,
I will say one tip though, just be as specific and as detailed as possible. The more the LLM's got to work with, the better, and the better results you'll get. Also, responsible usage again. But
okay,
yeah, there's a whole there's a lot of techniques that can help you there.
cool. Okay. Good. So, just to finalise then, obviously, if you're on here, hopefully you might be entering the Global Good Awards. Our deadlines, you probably know, are for Global Good Awards. It's the 2nd of May and the 9th for the extended deadline. And we've obviously got the Finance Awards now, the Global Good Finance Awards launching this year. And deadline is 16th of May with the 23rd of May extended deadline. And just finally, if anyone needs any additional support with their award entries, I do offer one-to-one consulting for, on a one-to-one basis on helping people with their award entries and evaluating previous applications or other award programs that you might have entered, maybe not done so well. I can help with some consulting, and I can, depending on what you need, I can bring in a judge as well to help with that. So I think we've covered everything. I'm just doing a quick check that we've covered all the questions. Yeah, I think we're good. So as I say, I will do a follow-up email to everybody, and yeah, thank you for coming, and thank you, Rebecca, for helping out.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.